G'day there guys, my wife just left me and took the kids and now I have to pay full custody. What will I do? You can tell me today on today's episode of r/relationship advice. Hope you enjoy the stories, tell me what you think of it, and that's all I have to say. Posted by user ThrowRA Sabotaged. Titled, My 33 male, wife, 25 female, constantly makes a conscious effort to humiliate me during my lessons over Zoom. While under normal circumstances, I would try to communicate my feelings to my wife, I am at my wit's end for how to handle this situation, as I've exhausted all of the typical conflict resolution means. Being a teacher, I'm currently giving lessons over Zoom. I recognize that studying math over Zoom isn't the most exciting thing in the world for students, and I can barely get them to even pretend to be interested in my lessons when we're in the classroom. But they have done an admirable job of staying focused. My wife is making it extremely difficult on my end, though. Several months ago, when my lessons began, I went from working long hours to being at home all day. Unfortunately, my wife does not seem to understand that, while I'm at home, and while I can occasionally help out with a chore or two, I still have actual work to do. Between lesson prep, grading, and meetings, my schedule is quite full. The first time she interrupted my lesson, she abruptly opened the door to the room where I was teaching and loudly asked me to do the dishes. This was unbelievably awkward, as I was in the middle of teaching 3 dozen 10th graders geometry. I told her we would talk about it later, but not being deterred, she asked if that was a yes or a no. I said that it was a yes, but that I was in the middle of a lesson. Without a word, she closed the door. I got some chuckles from the students, but a bit of red-cheeked embarrassment was the extent of the damage. The next time, 2 days later, she again barged in holding a pair of my pants that I left on the floor of our bedroom. She loudly stated, "You need to pick up after yourself." This time, before responding, I muted my mic and turned off my camera, telling her that I was in the middle of a lesson. Again, she walked away without a word. At this point, I moved my setup into the basement of our house so that I could avoid further interruption. Since my basement looked like it probably has a few dead bodies buried in it, my students have begun to call me Basement Dad, which is endearing, but I would rather teach in a room where I'm not going to get asbestos in my lungs. The trouble really began when I started locking the door to prevent interruptions. My wife will begin by rattling the door a few times, followed by pounding on it. Then she'll groan loudly and say something negative about me. After that, I can hear her walking around the house, slamming doors. A few weeks ago, she was literally jumping up and down, stomping her feet in the room above mine. In the first month of these online lessons, I set up a hotkey to mute my mic and disable my camera instantly when needed. And luckily, my reflexes honed from Counter-Strike in my teens has paid off. But there have been times where she's sneaked in an embarrassing moment for me. Every time, I have patiently explained to her that I need complete quiet to teach my lessons. And she says, yeah, okay. Then in the next lesson, without fail, she will find something new to complain about and throw a tantrum, trying to humiliate me in front of my students. While my mute game is on point, students have recognized something wrong. One of my 9th graders even sent me an email asking if everything was okay. I had to make up a lame excuse about needing to mute my mic because of a sudden grinding noise that happens in my old basement. There is no way she bought that. Since I'm unable to go out, unable to even enter the school grounds, and have no place to go to avoid my wife, I'm unbelievably anxious when I teach. I've tried talking to her calmly, and I've even tried to get angry at her. When I yelled at her for forcefully sliding plastic files under the door so that they would float down in the background during my lessons, she expected me to apologize for getting angry at her. How can I even approach this kind of problem? I had a coworker with a wife that was super controlling and sadly very embarrassing to him. She has issues, and we are aware of it as a department. He was a wonderful worker, and I have no complaints of his ethics, but his wife can cause serious damage. She calls and harasses our office lines if she can't get a hold of him, If a female answers the office line, it's an automatic cheating and mistress belief. She was an absolute Karen. She got karma'd back when the line was accidentally transferred to a board member who was also female. Some colourful words were said, and the board held her cards till the end, revealed her role, and said due to her actions, her husband can be up for suspension and corrective action. She begged and stopped calling and harassing. She was a stay-at-home wife whose world revolved around her husband, who was already checked out in trying to stop her. He did get reprimanded too, but at least it was a reality check for his wife. Edit: forgot to mention, he worked 2 jobs to support his wife, even though he lives frugally. OP, you need to be more stern. Normally I won't condone snapping back, but if your wife kept doing that, it would have been a mute the mic/cam, and what the hell is wrong with you comment to her. Explain that you can get fired, get in trouble, even if it's not true, but being a teacher, your public persona as a positive role model is a huge deal at your work. That even harmless jokes and pranks can have consequences. Also, they pay you for the hours at work to work, not do chores. If she needs anything, to text you and you will get to it on break or after work hours. You gotta put a hard, stern boundary. Since she's acting like a child, it's time to scold her like one. I forgot to add, people mentioned PPD, since you have an 8-month-old. Have this discussion with your doc on the next appointment. If she is overwhelmed with the chores, see if you can hire a relative or a day babysitter for 2 to 3 hours 2 times a week to help out with the house chores or grocery runs that your wife can't do. There will be lots of college or high school students willing to earn the extra cash and even learn some housework or two. Having another person in the house may deter her from throwing tantrums. Super helpful edit. Dr. Holistic 5 made a great point in her comment as she works in the educational sector. Most schools do have a code of conduct policy inside and outside of the classrooms for both faculty and students, regardless if you are in the school or outside. Being we are in a world of cancel culture, his wife's actions may pose a serious threat to OP's job, especially if either of them snaps and is caught on camera. Yeah, I heard a story of a guy at work that had a similar problem. His wife would call all the time, beg him to come home, have all kinds of problems that she couldn't deal with, and he was really suffering because of it. I have a family member who works for a very high-paying company. They applied to be a graphic designer, but there were no openings for that at the time, and so they took a generic office clerk job. It does pay decent to be sure, with the promise that there were tons of opportunities for growth and probably a transition into graphics department was in the future. Then their spouse pulled all this same kind of stuff, and literally 16 years later, they are still a clerk, and effectively have been told that due to their partner's bullcrap, they can stay a clerk indefinitely or move to a different company. Update. My wife constantly makes a conscious effort to humiliate me during my lessons over Zoom. My first lesson after making that post, my wife went straight back to her old antics. I was in the lesson room as students gradually joined, talking to a student who was interested in luxury cars. At some point during the conversation, I said, "Yeah, I think I'd have to go with a Lamborghini there." I heard from behind the door in the basement where I was teaching, "Lamborghini," in a sarcastic, exaggerated tone of voice that kids will use to mock you. I realized she was being childish again, but figured she would eventually tire herself out. A few minutes after the lesson started, I used the word circumference to describe a word problem. I then heard circumference from behind the door at the top of the stairs, followed by giggling. Since the timing was right, as I was about to have students take a shot at a problem, I set them to the task, muted my mic and disabled my camera, and quietly crept up the stairs. I suddenly opened the door to find my wife with a cup over her ear pushed against the door so she could hear me. I whisper shouted at her for her behavior for about a minute. I asked if she was 5 years old and what the hell was wrong with her. She feigned fear and shock as if I had held her against the wall with my hands wrapped around her throat, which just made me sigh and go back downstairs to finish my lesson. For the rest of the lesson, she was quiet, but after it, I went upstairs to bring up what she did. She started asking if I was going to yell at her again. I responded that I wouldn't, and I tried to get back on topic, but no matter what I said about her behavior, her response was the same. When I brought up her stomping in the room above before, she said, "Are you going to yell at me again?" When I brought up her sliding plastic files under the door during a lesson before, "Oh, are you going to yell at me again?" When I brought up anything she has done during lessons, the answer was the same over and over again. There is absolutely no way to broach the topic with her now. I called her doctor and said that her behavior is erratic, and that she might have PPD. The doctor said that he could ask about it when she came in, but there is nothing much else that he could do. The next day, I tried to sit my wife down for a calm discussion about the possibility of her having PPD, to which she responded she had PTSD from my abusive shouting. Right. When I suggested therapy together, she said, "Oh, to fix your anger management problems? Sounds good." I teach in my car in front of a Starbucks now. Outside of lesson time, we haven't really had any issues. And now that I'm outside the house teaching, we are strained but stable. I know this is not a very satisfactory outcome, but I think she has deep underlying issues that are going to need professional intervention. When I said I would happily go to therapy with her to find a solution to our communication issues, she told me that I should go alone. I think that may actually be a good step, because having a neutral party to listen to my worries and guide me towards better de-escalation tactics would be highly beneficial. I could also try to entice her to join gradually. You may have found a workaround for this particular instance. However, whatever the underlying problem is, it is still there. You should continue to insist on her telling you why it is she feels the need to try and embarrass you. If you don't find and deal with this root problem, she's going to continue to act out in different ways. Mark my words, she will find another way to undermine and belittle you. Don't let this go. Also, be fair to yourself. You don't have a communication issue, you have a "your wife is an a-hole" issue. You can go to therapy if you want, but I don't think therapists fix that, and particularly not if she isn't there. You need to deal with this. Maybe the right therapist can give you some advice, but you have to be the one to really put the work into getting her to talk to you about why she's pulling these idiot stunts. It might be beneficial for OP to record a video of himself saying everything he needs to, clearly and calmly, and sending it to his wife. I have done this in the past with my husband, who doesn't really hear me in these moments. He's too focused on his rebuttal, and he walks away from it with the completely wrong message and tone. Like, "You yelled at me the whole time," when all I did was express my feelings. With a video, they can replay it and understand the message, and there is also evidence of exactly what you said and that you were calm. I'm not saying this is the best solution, but it can be worth a try. Going to therapy yourself is a good start, but the problem is with her and won't get better if she doesn't recognize and address it, so if it continues, draw a line and tell her she has to address her sudden regression to third-grade behavior with a professional, or you will file for divorce. Yes, especially when she's deflecting to the point that she calls your behavior abusive. You need to be careful. For real, sounds like the type of person who will hurt themselves, call the cops and say he did it. I saw the original post. Yes, go to the therapy alone. Your therapist might have some good strategies, or be able to point you towards more resources, all the while ensuring you don't go mad yourself dealing with this. I'm sorry for you having to deal with this. This is what I'm hoping for now. A large part of therapy is for me. I'm well overdue. On the other hand, I would like to see what a licensed therapist has to say about my wife's behavior. OP, my father was a doormat for a wife like this. I cannot tell you the indescribable damage it had when he stayed with her, as in lives destroyed. If she won't go to therapy, you can't fix her. Think about it. You are teaching in your car. The thing is, mental health providers can't commit her because of that. She has to be willing to go, and she won't, because she likely has some form of personality disorder none of us are qualified to diagnose. So the only logical thing you can do is, if she refuses to go to therapy to fix herself, is to begin thinking about divorce. You are doing the thing us women do too, trying to fix a partner that can't be fixed, because they don't change. Our next post is by user ThrowRA Keep It Because Secret, titled, My 26 male, brother 29 male, is married to and cheating on my best friend 26 female, and I'm conflicted if I should say anything. My best friend Pam and my brother Jim got married 2 years ago. I recently discovered that Jim is cheating on Pam with a college friend of mine. Said friend posted a picture of my brother's back laying in bed with her on Snapchat. I'm assuming most people thought that it was some random guy, but Jim has a tattoo of my and my younger sister's name on his left shoulder. I immediately confronted him and demanded an explanation, and he admitted that he's been having an affair for the last 2 months. I was appalled, but decided to not tell due to Jim's pleading. I've been having a very hard time choosing to stay quiet or not. I didn't have a great childhood. My dad was out of the picture, Mum was there but had some mental health issues that'd render her, let's just say, unable to be fully attentive. Jim stepped up. He served as a parent for so much of my life. He practically raised me and my sister. If not for him being in my life, honestly, I probably would have starved to death or ended up on the streets. I don't think I can just betray him like that. On the other hand, Pam is my best friend. We've been friends since we were 17. If my girlfriend had been cheating on me and Pam knew, she'd tell me. She deserves to know what Jim is doing, but I'm unsure if I can out Jim like this. What should I do? The side chick is literally posting pictures of him. This won't stay a secret for long. Your best friend deserves to know. She could get an STD or something. The fact that your brother basically raised you means nothing. He's still a crappy person for cheating. Tell your brother he needs to come clean, or you will have to do it yourself. If she finds out that you knew and didn't tell her, even if Jim ends up telling her, it'll damage the friendship forever. If Jim was really sorry, he would be making it right with his wife and either end the marriage, end the side hustle, or ask his wife to open up their relationship. He's made his bed and he can lie in it. Agreed. Your options are potentially ruining your friendship versus, what? Not covering for someone's lie just so they can keep doing it? Jim is capitalizing on your soft spot for him and coercing you into not saying anything simply because he doesn't want to face the repercussions of his hurtful actions. Not because there's any other valid reason for him to be lying. His only interest is making sure that he doesn't get caught and having to deal with the consequences. And it's cheeky to be making his crappy choices your problem. No, definitely not on the open marriage. As someone that had an open marriage and absolutely prefers non-monogamy, bringing this up after cheating is so inauthentic, it's disgusting, and it's definitely a way to just continue his crappy ways. A true open relation desire requires, and already would have, discussion about it. Tell her. She will be crushed after this betrayal. If you tell her, at least she knows that someone chose her over this cheater. As much as I want to agree, a lot of the time the messenger is actually the one that gets cut out of the picture, not the cheater. Be careful if you're the person that has to tell your friend. It could backfire. Unless you have a screenshot of that picture as hard evidence, still. If Jim really did do a good job at parenting you when you were young, prove it to him by not putting up with his bullcrap. Update, my brother is married to and cheating on my best friend, and I'm conflicted if I should say anything. Thanks for all the help I got in my last post. As much as it pained me to do so, I decided to do the right thing. Pam should know that my brother is cheating on her. I decided to give Jim a chance. I called him and told him that I can't keep this secret. It was tearing me up inside to do so. I couldn't think about anything else. I told him I loved him so much, but I couldn't let him do this to someone else that I loved like family. He begged me to reconsider. He didn't try to guilt trip me or anything, but he did say that he needs his younger brother to just be there for him. I told him I couldn't. I asked him what he would want if it was me getting cheated on or our little sister getting cheated. He said that he understood that it's wrong, but he was just exploring himself. I told him that that's no excuse. I told him that he had until that evening to tell Pam, and if he didn't, I would have to. We then hung up and I just waited. At 11 p.m., I called Pam and struck up a normal conversation. I asked her how things were with my brother, and she said it was fine and all that. They were thinking about having kids. I really couldn't believe my brother made me do this, but I had to tell her. I told her what I saw. She was livid. She refused to believe me. Luckily, I was able to show her the screenshot of my brother being in someone else's bed. She then told me that she needed to hang up. I haven't heard anything from my brother, but as of today, Pam is leaving him. So I guess that's good. She won't have to be hurt by him like that, and I can be there for her. My brother hasn't answered any of my calls or texts, so I don't know when we'll talk again. At least I still have Pam and my sister, I guess. Alright, that's where I think I'm going to end today's episode, guys. As always, I really do hope you learned something or just really enjoyed the posts that were put up today. Quick shout out to all my new and existing Patreon and channel members. You should be able to see your name on screen right now, and if you don't, then I don't think you're part of the club, and you really should join the club because it's a great club. And I want to thank every single one of you guys for supporting me in this journey. It really means so much to me, and I love you all so much for it. Thank you for helping me out. As you can tell, I'm now happy and healthy back in Australia. Thank God it's not cold like Ireland. I don't like wearing jumpers everywhere. I prefer the heat. Thank you very much. I know that's an unpopular opinion. Anyway, guys, I really do hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you later. Bye.